And by having this, you can exceed the weight limit of this by having all the weight over the wheels. Hey, it's Greg here with Outdoors in the Cheap, and I thought I'd show a way to rig up a game cart to, like, I guess any sort of motorbike, I suppose, but the specific, this is really not a motorbike, it's a scooter, Honda Ruckus. So I came up with this idea for moving a deer a long distance during deer season. Right? It's a place I like to hunt that's about 4 kilometers in, and it's a bit of a, you can do it, but I'm getting, you know, at that age where everything's a risk. So the idea is that you've got the game cart, you've got your deer. Basically, you want whatever's in this thing to be as low, to have as low a center of gravity as possible, because you got a trail with ruts and stuff like that, and it'll just tip otherwise. You got to drive really carefully, right? But I got just a sapling. I've got it tied on with inner tube. Right? You want something with some give but good grip that'll stay knotted. So inner tube, right? I got this one below, right, and this one above. Okay, more inner tube, and then some electrical tape or duct tape or whatever you got to just make sure this one does not slip or move, right, but it still has some give. And up here, what I've done is I've taken a 5-foot piece of electrical conduit and just wrapped it around. Okay, and back down. I didn't use a pipe bender. I should have, but I just used my body basically to bend it. That's why it's not, as you can tell, it's not perfect. But the trick is you want to have the point of contact on the bike in the center. I've messed around because this thing's in the way, right? I've messed around with having it on the side, and it does not pull right. It just feels like you're going to tip, and if there's any kind of weight in there, it gets more and more iffy, right? So you need it in the center. I tested this out just with a barbell, and this will hold at least 50 pounds, right? So it doesn't need to hold the weight of a deer, right? The deer is going to be over the axle, right? So it just needs to be able to handle the play. And then you want something long, the longer the better, so it can clear this light. Okay, here I've actually gouged out the side that's in contact with this, so it's just okay, right? And ideally you'd want to stick with a bit of a bend, right? So you could use that bend to clear this light, or just make it longer or whatever. Okay, so you just tie that on, then you electrical tape it so that it can't slip, right? The friction of the rubber should hold it in place on this bar. You check it every once in a while. You just drive slowly and carefully, right? And you have to listen while you're driving to make sure this hasn't tipped. It makes a certain sound when it's pulling correctly, makes a certain sound when it's not pulling correctly. I mean, this is not, you know, manufacturer recommended. This is not a safe thing to do. This is something you do at slow speeds for moving something, and very carefully, right? So this is not, you're not flying down the trail, especially these game carts. They're not made to be towed behind things, and they only have a 2-foot wheelbase, so they tip really, really easily. So you just have to go slowly and be careful. Okay, and if you got an ATV, you don't need any of this. So this is just a way to increase the functionality of a relatively cheap vehicle. You know, you put knobby tires on your Ruckus. That way it has reasonable sort of logging road capabilities. And then by having this, you can exceed the weight limit of this by having all the weight over the wheels. You still have to pull. Now, I doubt it's good for the engine, but again, what are you going to do? You're going to do this once or twice a year, right? This is not every day. If you use this for this sort of thing every day, you're going to burn it out. This is like once or twice a year to move something. Now today, I was trying to move this canoe on top of this, and the problem is that the center of gravity is just too high. It is just too high to move a canoe. So the only thing you can really do is drive what I'm going to do now is drive the moped or the scooter over this grassy shoulder and just tow the canoe. If I was carrying this, I wouldn't be carrying it here. I'd be dragging it anyway. So just slowly drag it over this grass. I've gone maybe a quarter clip and it's tipped 3 times because there's just so many ruts here and you can't really control. You're not looking backwards, right? You can't control what ruts it gets in. It just tips so much, it just drives me crazy. So I'm gonna hook it onto the bike and just tow it, and we'll see how that goes. Never came loose, so I tied it on. I got a rope around the bow of the canoe. I had it tied on here, and I put another one here just as a secondary, right? And this is just that same knot there. You can see how there's a bit of a, you can make, that's almost a 45. Anyway, I wouldn't go any wider than that, right? So that is 45, still holding, but you know, who knows what the tolerance is for turning. But see how it hasn't slipped? It stayed in the center, which is where you want it for pulling. So, I mean, this works. I'm curious. We'll flip the canoe over and see what's left of the bottom. You know, I tried to stay on the shoulder of the road and stay on the grass. And luckily it's May, so there's, you know, there's some green. This is relatively soft. And this is a sports pal, so canoe, so they're tough as hell anyway, right? So I think that worked out just fine. I wouldn't be dragging it over rocks or gravel or anything like that, but if you can get a logging road where there's a kind of grassy shoulder like that, let's flip this over and see what state the bottom of the canoe's in after that drag. Yeah, I might as well put the chest cam on just so you can see how easy this is to disconnect. Okay, all right, so and these are just double knots, and if I had to go further I would have maybe taped these down with the electrical tape or duct tape. But I thought I'd just see how well they held like that. But see how quick and easy that is to disconnect, right? Nothing to that. That's off. Have a look at the underside. Well, really not too bad. I mean, it kind of looked like that before. You know, you can see there's some bit of scoring here. But really, you know, because these canoes have these sort of angle iron things, right? They take the brunt of the abuse, right? So the rest of the canoe is safe. So here's the front where it took the most. Looks okay, right? So, or wait a minute, this was the front. Yeah, this was up. So this is fine, right? Did not dig in because I had the front up a bit, right? So I think it's, look, there's not even any dirt in that little crack there. So I mean, yeah, it took that drag really easily. Now I mean, there was times when I had to stop and get the thing moving again, and then those instances, you know, I would push with my legs in addition to using the motor just to give it a little more horsepower, right? Because it's only a 50cc engine and it's not geared for anything other than, you know, driving on the street in city traffic. It's not even, you know, these things, the fastest I've ever had this is 60 kilometers an hour, right? So it's got no torque anywhere, I imagine. It's got more torque when you're moving, of course. So when I had to start the canoe moving, I would just put my feet down and add a little human power to the horsepower just to get it moving. Once you get it moving and a little bit of momentum there, it just seems to travel okay. And I mean, I had a little bit of weight, I had that thing, but you know, I wouldn't be hauling gear in a canoe. The canoe should be empty or as close to empty as possible, but that worked out fine. So anyway, just a little video showing you what one of these I think it's 49cc, one of these 49cc little Honda Ruckuses can do with little ingenuity and you know, a little you know, duct tape and rubber bands and cleverness, and of course risk taking as well, right? But you know, we got her in. I mean, this is 4 kilometers. I got some of it into my vehicle, but then the road got too bad for a vehicle. I carry this on a rack behind my car. I just, you know, take the take the Ruckus off the rack, put the rack back in the car, lock the car up, and then off we go, right? So now I'm gonna get this in the woods and spend the weekend fishing. So I hope you found that interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe, and until next time, enjoy the outdoors on the cheap. Thanks for watching.